Hello, good evening. Hi, everyone. You all heard me talk, so I'm only here to say that I'd like to just introduce our senior curator, Kanika Anand, and wonderful colleague and friend. She joined us actually a week before the pandemic. So she was an employee at Contemporary Calgary for 6 days, I think. And then we all retreated and started to build our programming remotely. But a wonderful colleague is here from Canada, originally from Delhi, has amazing international experience, and a wonderful member of the team. And so without further ado, please, I'll introduce Kanika Anand, our senior curator, who will introduce Marcel, and we'll get started this evening. Kanika.
So tall. Ooh. Okay. Thanks, David. Welcome, everyone. I'm extremely pleased to introduce Marcel Dzama and chat more about his practice and his exhibition, Ghosts of Canoe Lake. I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have had a chance to look at the exhibition. We are extremely proud to have collaborated with the McMichael Canadian Art Collection on this very special exhibition. It has been an absolute treat to work with Marcel, and we've gotten to know him and his family. Shelley is here, Willem is here. And I'd also like to thank his gallery, David Swerner, Rebecca Homburg is here, flew in from New York. Thank you all. This is sort of a homecoming exhibition. Marcel is showing in Canada after 14 years. This is also an exhibition that is slightly more expansive than the McMichael exhibition. There are 8 films, 7 of which were included in the Contemporary Calgary iteration, a whole new body of prints, and of course we have a very special film that will play in the Dome. So right after the talk, please do stay. We have a special screening. It's a 23-minute film of To Live on the Moon for Lorca, and we'll talk about it in our talk. To introduce Marcel, there is no short way to introduce Marcel, but I will try. Marcel Dzama is one of Canada's most intriguing contemporary artists, and I think one of the most important. An artist who works in a variety of media that draws from folk, vernacular, as well as art historical and contemporary influences. Born and raised in Winnipeg, he was the founder of the famous Royal Art Lodge, collective of artists who created collaborative drawings. And he's continued to collaborate through his career with a range of artistic partners, including the New York City Ballet, the artist Raymond Pettibon, the actress Amy Sedaris. You'll see some of the films featuring them. These are just a few. In this exhibition, Dzama revisits memories of his childhood spent amidst the expanse of the prairie landscape and the legacy of Canadian landscape painters, with very particular references to Thomson and the Group of Seven. Through a pageantry of satirical characters, the exhibition touches upon themes of wildfires, climate change, global political unrest, displacement of people, social polarization, and the persecution of difference. It is an incredibly timely exhibition that offers a sense of both nostalgia and hope, while also leaving room for curiosity and mystery. Welcome, Marcel. We are very happy to host this exhibition and to host you in Calgary. Welcome.
Testing. There we go. Thank you for coming out, everyone. Thank you for the nice intro.
Well, that is the shortest introduction of all the things that you have done and achieved and explored and experimented with. And I know it will be about 30 minutes of us kind of only touching upon a few things, but I hope we engage in some of the magic that you create.
Oh, thanks.
I suppose we can. Oh, I do have a clicker. Help.
I could talk about this one.
Yeah, maybe if we flip to. Sorry, this doesn't seem to work, but thank
There you
you. So if we perhaps can start with how the making of this exhibition. It's a body of work that you started creating about 2 years ago. It's fairly recent. And I know with the contemporary Calgary version, we have included a lot of earlier films. But to start with this work that kind of, oh, we've gone back. Uh-oh. We Cannot Abandon Such Beauty. That's the work. It frames the intent of the show, I think. And you have this sort of renewed interest in landscape painters and the landscape itself. So if you can share a little bit about how this came about.
Yeah, I was, well, a lot of it came, I'd just finished doing the New York City Ballet, and I'd done a film, well, I didn't do the ballet. I did the costumes and the set designs. And I had a show in the promenade space as well. And then I did 2 films and a solo show all within half a year. And I was completely burnt out. And I just wanted to spend time with my family. And I had this opportunity to travel to Morocco for a month. And so we all went and just drove around. We had a bit of a schedule, but that kind of changed. I was really felt like that was an end of a chapter after the New York City Ballet, that I wanted to really bring something new to my work, and that really opened up, really having color and nature playing a lot more prominent presence in my work, and that was like the perfect place for it because it was, the sunlight was so different, and it just, and the textures on the textiles. And and then just getting to spend time with my family and just being more hopeful and stuff. So it was,
but you are more of a night person.
Yeah, so when I was there, I was very much a morning person, which was nice too. But we did have really one great night experience where I believe it was the first spring moon, which is called the pink moon. And we were in this town called Chef Chouin, which is this all blue city on the mountains. And the Casbah, my son and I think we got lost from my wife, and we were trying to find our way around. But the moon was our only main light, and we'd run into these interesting stray cats. And my son, I think he was 6 or so at the time, but he was taking photos of all the stray cats and ended up drawing a lot of those. I forgot where I was going with this, but it was just a new experience. And then from that, we also moved to Long Island for 2 years, and I started doing more nature painting at that point. And then I slowly got back into the group of 7 from that. And then this was around the time when Sarah was asking about doing a show together. And so I was like, maybe I'm going ahead of myself. So
no, that's
okay.
absolutely fine.
Yeah.
It kind of, that's the direction we were going in.
Okay,
but
yeah.
To give everyone context as to, and that's perfect because it really brings into like how the McMichael had this show. It was a large survey exhibition of Thomson's work. And Sarah Melroy, the chief curator there, reached out to you and started talking about an exhibition. Then you had this all these experiences in Morocco, and we're already thinking about the being outside and the woods and landscape. And was that sort of a way for you to look back at your own sort of childhood and your own history and look at like the Canadian land? I don't want to put words in your mouth,
exactly.
but tell us.
So that just looking, well, because I was looking at nature again, because before my drawings were more, either it was a blank background if you go early enough, which I think is a little bit to do just being raised in Winnipeg because of the snow becomes your entire horizon, and snow just blends together. So it might as well be a blank page. But in the summer, there is beautiful foliage and everything. And then when I moved to New York, I slowly made the background become a stage. And so everything was kind of a stage production. I mean, it still has element, like the piece back is very much a stage production of characters. And so now that's full on characters interacting with nature and hopefully trying to rescue the environment.
Yeah, and perhaps we can move to the next slide, which is a direct reference to Thomson. This is, of course, Ghost of Thomson, and how you kind of go in, like, it's a deep dive into these histories and personalities. Like, when I started looking at this exhibition, kind of like it's rooted in these two personalities and of Thomson and then Federico Garcia Lorca, who we will come to a little bit later.
I did. Oh, no, there I'm back.
We're back. So why were these figures important? How did they kind of like, and maybe you can lean in a little bit into how you think about these personalities. And we were doing the tour yesterday. We had a staff tour, and you were kind of talking about also these 2 points in time where it's World War I, World War II, but why is that important to you, and how are you thinking of these points in history and thinking of these specific personalities that you draw from?
Yeah, so with Thomson and Federico Garcia Lorca, both of their, or should I talk about how I got into them, or should I just compare them
Sure.
right now?
And
Okay.
perhaps, if for those who
Okay.
don't know, Lorca is a Spanish poet, and perhaps you can lead into how that journey began.
Yeah, I'd say about 10 or 12 years ago, I had a show in Spain, and Laura Garcia Lorca, the niece of Federico Garcia Lorca, came to my show and mentioned that she really loved the work, and that that Lorca had written this screenplay that that he had done, but was lost till, I believe, 91 or somewhere around then. They found it in the desk of a quite well-known Mexican director that I'm forgetting his name right now. But he had passed away, and his wife found it in a drawer, and they recently put it in his complete works. And she was wondering if I'd be interested in doing a version, or making a film version of the script. And I've talked to her, and because of Leonard Cohen, I was a big fan of Lorca. I had bought poetry books of his, and so I think she must have noticed maybe a few quotes or something on the drawings that were Lorca related, or just saw that kindred spirits. And so I got to go through the archive of Lorca's work, and we had done all these little puppet theater performances as well that were really interesting. And so that project got postponed, though, because the Lorca Foundation ended up moving to Granada, and so the grant for it, or the funds for it, just kind of fell through, and so that's why it sat for 10 years. And I was asked in New York to do a Performa piece, which is it happens every 2 years in New York, and they ask different artists to do a performance. And so I thought this was a perfect opportunity to bring this this whole screenplay to life. And so I proposed doing, because it's supposed to be a live performance and not really a film. So I figured out a way to make a film still and do a live performance. So we ended up making the film, though I found out later a Catalonian artist had made the film a year before me. And so I changed the entire script and wrote Lorca's life into it. And at the time, I was obsessed with Thomson, and I knew I was going to show it to McMichael, and so I wrote him into the film as well. And then I also took elements of kind of characters and just things I've been kind of associated with into the film. Sorry. Oh, and then so the reason I put also Thomson into the film is because Tom's life was really cut short tragically because of World War I, and he was conscientious. I'm pronouncing it wrong. Conscientious objector of World War I. So, and then also Federico Garcia Lorca, the Spanish Civil War had just started, and so it was the beginnings really of World War II, and so the fascist regime executed him for being a communist and a homosexual. So both these two kind of lives cut short in their peak of their lives were because of these two kind of tragic events. And I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah. I kind of wandered around. Sorry.
It keeps the anticipation of the film that we will play later, so that's perfect. But I'll kind of come back to Thomson and perhaps like talk a little bit about stylistically some of your inspirations. So you have these polka dotted characters, these masked sort of, and you kind of referenced them earlier when you're like talking about almost looking at work that are stage performance characters. So they're almost like stage sets, and the work is very theatrical. And you also have these little animal companions. So share with us how you're thinking through those things and where that inspiration comes from.
Yeah, with the polka dotted characters was it kind of happened around the time when I was changed from when I moved to New York from Winnipeg, and things slowly became this stage production. And I had seen photos and maybe a snippet of a ballet that Francis Picabia had done with the Stockholm, or the Swedish ballet called Intermission. And it was audience members were dressed up in these suits, and then they came on stage and undressed, and they had these tight polka dot outfits and started dancing. And so I really like that idea of these kind of Harlequin kind of characters. So I added the polka dots to my characters. And then any excuse to reference Picabia or Marcel Duchamp, and I've always, any opportunity, I've taken it.
Yeah, you reference Duchamp a lot, like even with chess, for instance.
It's because of Duchamp that I got obsessed with chess later in life.
So when was the first, when do you think you really kind of got deep dive into the world of Duchamp, and then you've made it your own? There's so much of that is just very particularly yours.
Yeah, with Marcel Duchamp, it came almost from really early memory. Probably the first artist I'd seen his work was his work, because I was in French immersion at the time, and so I'd seen a book that said Marcel Duchamp, and I was like, oh, Marcel, and then so it was ego seeing this other Marcel, and I had flipped through it, and I was like, oh, it's so strange and interesting. And then the last page was the Attendene, which is pretty striking if you're a very young kid. It's this nude woman kind of laying on the grass with a torch in her hand, and so that image really stayed with me. And I remember I had a show in Philadelphia in, I think maybe 98 or 99, and I got to go to the Philadelphia Museum, and I saw that for the first time, and I was just like, oh, that's my childhood memory of this thing, because I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a photograph or a painting or maybe even a little diorama, but I didn't know it was this huge thing. And I mean, I should have known by then, but I just didn't take it in. And so that after that, I got really obsessed with Duchamp and um, tried my luck at playing chess and stuff as well. My attention span was disappearing as I moved to New York. It was just because you're waiting in line all the time, and so I thought maybe I'll learn to play chess and I'll become more patient. And so I think it worked for a little while, and then I kind of abandoned it. And I was also living on University Square, which is close to the street called Thomson Street, I believe, and it has all these chess clubs that you can play at, and so I got to do that a few times, and so, but I wasn't very great. Well, I was okay.
But yeah, it features a lot in your work, and I think that's kind of like really interesting because there's a play, but there's also a level of wit in the way you use it, and won't give too much away because I want people to be able to like look at the work. But perhaps we can move to the next slide, which is the Sisters of Nature Parade on the Flood. And you also draw from myths and looking at history, but also looking at the future. And if you can speak a little bit about like how, because there's a lot going on in your world, and there's all these different sources, but you kind of put them together. So if you kind of like also share with us like your ideas and world building in this like sort of like time going backward and forward.
Yeah, a lot of, I mean, I was always obsessed with any myth stories, like from Greek or even indigenous people and African myths, and even biblical things, so biblical myths. And in this kind of series, I'd drawn a lot of like Mother Nature, either passed away in the bottom of the ocean with the battleships at the top, or just mankind or humankind just taking advantage of nature. And this one, it was kind of a revenge dance of Mother Nature flooding the waters on us. And so this is Mother Nature's sisters parading after they flooded us, I guess. So I kind of also had that idea of the swan and the Greek myth, but so they're partying with them too. And then the wind's blowing more, almost like hailstones or something.
Yeah, no, it's a great work. And we can perhaps move to the next slide, please. That's Ghosts of Canoe Lake, and this is actually also the title of the exhibition. And you were sharing with us earlier how this was during, like, you were thinking about this during the Roe versus Wade decision, like how that was something that you were thinking about, and you've done this quite often, where there are certain instances where like politics will infiltrate like certain sort of themes and certain subject material in your work. Share with us a little bit about like what's happening in this work, and why did you pick this as the title of the exhibition?
Yeah, so this work I'd done around the time of the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and it was supposed to kind of be like a female power drawing. I don't know if it translates well, but it was also this was I think I'd done it just before Sarah asked me to do the show, or it was around that time. And originally the show she wanted to do was all of my political work that I had done, because I'd done all this work during the COVID and just the terrible Trump years, and which I guess the debate's happening right now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I had done all these anti-Trump and just what was going on at that time. And this, I guess, was the closest thing to something political that I was doing around that time. I forgot where I was going with this, but that was the original idea for the show. But she had spotted this piece through maybe just going through the Warner archives, because I think I'd still done this piece in 23, but it was like early 23,
Yeah.
so we included it. And so, yeah, so I was just trying to, I think there was another piece in the show that's like more direct. My wife and son and we all went to this protest, and I had seen someone with a sign that said, I didn't come from your ribs, you came from my vagina.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was kind of a great point and everything. So I made a drawing based on that, which was also based on this famous painting. I'm really forgetting the name of, do you happen to know the creation of mankind, or the creation of man?
I know which one you're referencing.
It's this old Renaissance painting that's just a woman lying down, and it's just that area. But I always thought of it as a powerful piece, as in a pro feminist way. So I don't know if it was or not, but.
No, I was actually going to come to that work.
Oh,
'cause
sorry.
No,
Jumping
it's
ahead.
it's one of the pieces that it's one of my favorite pieces in the
Okay.
exhibition. So, and I think we can move to the next slide. So coming back to chess and Duchamp, because this is more, we have 7 films with the To Live on the Moon for Lorca is the 8th film. We have 8 films, and this is a still from the chess game, which. And you do these costumes. You've kind of worked with the New York City Ballet. You've done a lot of work with them. How we kind of touched upon like chess and these characters, but how do they repeat themselves in your work? Why is that important for you? What are you thinking about when you're kind of like placing them within your drawings and within films? And if you can share a little bit about like your thoughts on filmmaking and cinema and what inspires that side of Marcel Dzama.
Okay. So I think what the main this one was definitely in my I get these time periods where I get obsessed with something and I almost bring it into the world of my drawings and films and everything. So this was definitely the prime Duchamp era where I got into chess. And so this was a chess game come to life. So these are the polka dotted characters, which was a Picabia influence, is with the queen, who is actually another obsession I had around that time, was this Bauhaus artist, Oscar Schlemmer. And so I kind of took that kind of, he had these costumes that were very limited movement, ballet dancing, and very heavy, like almost robotic, Bauhaus style.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then at the time, I was making chess sets in Guadalajara. I had this opportunity to work at a ceramics foundry, and I was making little ceramic chess sets and some dioramas. And I told the owner that I was interested in making a film based on a chess game, and he's like, "We got to do it in Guadalajara," and he just made it all happen. I was trying to figure out how to get money and maybe to do it in Canada or in New York or something, and he's like, "We'll do it here. I know people," and he just did the entire thing like within a few, I think it was just a few months. And I had sent some drawing ideas, and then when I got there, he had already made some of the costumes. had his friends who were designers, and so we just hit it off. So Jose Noy Cerro is really great. He has this ceramics foundry in Guadalajara that invites artists out there, and he had worked with Jason Rhodes and Jeffrey Farmer, who's probably well known here, I assume, and there's lots of other artists, but And then, so cinema influence, just coming from Winnipeg, I think in my DNA has Guy Madden in it. It's just, you can't not be influenced by his work if you come from Winnipeg, I think. And so, and then also, there's a professor there, George Tolles, that works with Guy Madden as well, that was really influential. Then my wife, Shelley, who had introduced me to a lot of films, she came from a video store background and knew everything. So she gave me the proper lesson.
That's handy to have.
Yeah, exactly. And then, yeah, and just any early film, I like that time period where there was no really rules to film. There was just people making up the rules and doing these camera tricks, and there wasn't, close up or anything. It was just
Weren't as slick
Yeah.
as how they make them now.
yeah,
Although
And-
yours are pretty cool.
yeah. Did I miss anything?
No,
That was it, yeah.
no,
I wasn't sure.
no. And of course, this is the chess game. But then there's also Sister Squares and then Dance Floor Dracula that all kind of like
Yeah, that's another more
yeah.
chess games.
There's
Yeah.
lots of like chess and
Yeah.
dance and
And
dance
then
off
even
and chess.
there's one called Jester's Dance. That's
That's right. Yeah.
It's the love story of Marcel Duchamp and Marie Martin, and he gets turned into this judge who's obsessed with chess. It's in the tent if anyone wants to see that one.
It's a great film.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh,
I know we can chat for a long time. But I also want to be able to take questions from the audience. So we can move to the next slide. This was the curtain raiser for To Live on the Moon for Lorca. And we will be playing the film. It's a 23-minute film. But before that, I'd like to be able to take questions from the audience for maybe about 10 minutes. And then we'll play the film. So if anyone has questions, raise your hand. We're a little bit blinded by the light, so I can't really see
I see someone
people.
waving there too.
Oh, great. That I can see.
Hi, Marcel, Greg again. Just wondering if you can talk about the moon image.
Oh yeah, so that all started when I was in Morocco in Chefchaouen, seeing the pink moon so it looked just so much bigger than I'd ever seen it. And then after that, I was thinking a lot about A Trip to the Moon by oh my God, the French George Louis, yeah. And so I slowly started drawing, and then it was almost in every drawing after a while. So yeah, so it was another obsession with the moon. And then also, I think I keep really late hours, so I think also just we moved to Long Island, and so when you're out in the dark more, you just notice the different stages of the moon. And so I really felt like my best nights of making art really were the full moon nights. So it was kind of also felt like my companion or something in some ways. Oh yeah, thanks.
The moon and cats feature very
Oh, yeah.
prominently through this
Oh
exhibition.
yeah, the cat was my cat of 21 years had passed away just around the time I was working on these, so I tried to include him as much in here as possible. And I mean, I had drawn cats before a lot because he would hang out with me constantly because he kept Dracula hours too, so he'd be my one person who was up, and and he used to actually get these energy bursts around like maybe 3 a.m. or so, and he'd run around my studio and just like crazy. Sometimes he'd add to my work because he would just run over the ink and just so even at like this is like when he was 19 and 20 when he'd just go crazy. So yeah, it was only really his last year was full decline, but yeah. Yeah, I still can't. Oh. Oh,
Yeah, sure.
From what I hear, you made this show in about a year.
Yeah.
So, which sounds to me like you were very hardworking when you start to do a project.
Yeah.
Is that typical
Yeah, I work well with deadlines. Like I get, because maybe it's my my obsessions of things, and then I just get focused in on what I'm working on at that time, which, yeah, sorry, Shelley and Willem, sometimes that happens. So yeah, I'll get, yeah, like I was pretty much working full day to night, or night to day hours. So when my son was going to school, I would, as soon as he went to bed, I would work till I had to drive him to school in the morning, and then I'd sleep when he was at school. So I don't know what kind of hours those were, but it was every day, and just, but yeah, it was exciting though, except maybe the last few weeks, because the deadline was about to happen, and I still hadn't finished the triptych piece. And I was behind maybe 5 days or so, so they had to do a special delivery of the last panel of the drawing, and I was still had a hairdryer on the drawing when the art movers came in to take it. I was like, just 1 second. So it was right to the last minute. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, hi there. I'm right in the second row here. Hello.
Oh,
hi.
yeah.
Hi. I'm always curious about how artists advance through their careers and grow up and move along. And I've noticed that a lot of Winnipeg artists that I admire, including Guy Madden and some other musicians like Venetian Snares and Propaganda, a lot of them, they are quite famous, but they tend to stay in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And I don't know why a lot of other Canadian artists go elsewhere, but Winnipeg artists tend to stay in Winnipeg. So I'm just curious why you think about that. And I'm also curious, what is it that draws famous Canadian artists to the United States? Because sometimes we look down there and we're like, I like being in Canada. It doesn't seem like a nice place down there, but so many people go. Like, is it just because you want to be around other artists and that's where everybody goes, or is it the landscape? Or like, what is it?
Well, with Winnipeg in general, I had a really rough year the year I moved. The art lodge was like falling apart at that point, and there was this kind of in-house fighting, and it was that cold. It was the coldest winter on record that had happened for, I think it was -50 for, I think it was a month and a half. Yeah. For a month and a half, and I had went out. My wife and I had this giant pile of recycling and garbage that I hadn't taken out because it was just so cold just to take it out to the garbage. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go do it. And I'd taken the recycling out first, and the ground had frozen so solid that even if you had boots or whatever, it was just so slippery. I just slipped with all this recycling, and it all just fell on my face. And I came back in, and Shelley was like, "Oh, that was really quick. You got it all done so quickly." And then I went out to the car to start it, and my battery had frozen solid, even with it being plugged in. And so I was like, and I've been working with David Zorner for a while, and they were trying to convince my wife and I to move there. And I was like, call him up that day. And they made it way too easy too. So they said, we'll handle the immigration. You can have my apartment below as your studio, and you can spend time in my house till you find an apartment, because we're out in Montauk for the summer. And it was just like, oh, okay, this is way too easy. And so, because originally we were going to move to Montreal, that was our main plan. And he was like, cut out the middle move, just come to New York already. So and then being I was still in my 20s at the time, I was just excited for any kind of culture. And I mean, I had kind of, at that point in Winnipeg, I was also, I kind of was withdrawing a little bit, because it felt like, I felt bad. Sometimes people would ask me what's new, and I'd be like, oh, I had a show here and there, and be like, oh, that's nice for you, kind of thing. It was happening a little bit, so I don't know, that's weird to admit, but that was the case, though. And yeah, I don't know, that's I don't know if that answers it. But yeah, I still miss Winnipeg a lot, and I get to go back there a lot. And so, and yeah, and I'm friends with John Sampson and everyone from the Weaker Thans, and I get to communicate with them online mostly, but it's always nice to visit in the summer. Oh yeah.
Hi, I'm Carla.
Hi.
Lovely work.
Thank you.
Your pieces are so complex. My question is, do you see them completely in your mind, then put them down, or do they evolve and emerge?
Yeah, they're a mix of both. Like, I'll have, there's a couple of pages from a sketchbook that I have that are on display, but I have a sketchbook that I keep where I draw out the layout that I think I'm gonna do, but I let like accidents or just if I'm drawing things just appear. Like the cat, of course, always appears. He's never planned in there. He's just always in there. And then yeah, so. There's planning and then openness for any happy accidents or anything like that.
Why did you have
Willem?
Marcel Duchamp as turn into a judge?
You know the answer. That's
Yeah.
why. So thanks, Willem. That's my son. So when my wife was pregnant with my son, we were at doctor's offices just for all these checkups and things, and every time I went to the doctor's office, Judge Judy was playing. And I just like, oh, that's so strange, this whole act that's kind of going on. And so somehow it worked its way into the film where Marcel Duchamp becomes this evil judge that judges these poor characters. And so that was the influence. Thanks, Willem.
Sorry, there are two sides, and I'm worried I'm being partial to this side.
I think we'll take one last question, Muriel.
So I noticed you have a lot of like recurring characters, like the moon and the cat, obviously, and kind of like masked people. Are any of those characters ever like a self-insert, or have you had self-inserts in the past in your work?
Like self-portraits or
Yeah.
self-insert. Yeah. Sometimes the bear can be a play-in. Early drawings, there was this amputated cowboy that I kind of felt like I was not very masculine. Like I used to get beat up all the time for being like the arty guy in school. So there was that, and then I'd drawn the Minotaur later when I was in Mexico, and I'd noticed all these bullfighting things, and so I thought the Minotaur was actually kind of interesting, and thought of him as. And then I think also Picasso had done that a lot, so I thought, oh, I'll do that too. So I'd done that a few times.
Sorry, maybe we'll take the last question from the other side. 'cause
Oh, I know
we've
there are
been on
lots of
this
people
side.
waving on. Sorry,
I've had drama training.
Okay.
great.
Anyhow, what are your dreams like? Do you remember them?
Yeah. I mean, I have crazy dreams. So, but those aren't the ones I use for drawings usually. Those are the ones that just like haunt me. And then I have more creative dreams where I'm kind of almost falling asleep. So it's like that. One foot in reality and the other kind of in the subconscious. So it's that nice little moment when you're almost asleep. And so I have a little sketchbook that I write down ideas in around that time. And I think some of my favorite ideas usually come around that time. So they're not really dreams, but they're almost dreams, I guess. Daydreams, or not even daydreams, but night. Oh, actually, they probably are daydreams because I'm falling asleep at night in the day. So
That's true.
daydreams.
I know there were a couple of hands. There's. Yeah?
Yeah.
Sorry, I could keep my mic too. Here you go. Excuse me, sorry.
Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you so much for this talk. It's been so great.
Thank you.
I just watched The Infidels outside, and
I noticed throughout your work you have a reoccurring theme of like young women with guns and violence, but it's almost like this theatrical, playful violence. And I was wondering if you could speak to that character or that theme at all.
Yeah, that one was, it was a strange coincidence on that one because I was asked by this band to do a music video. And I didn't really want to do a music video, but I said, if I could make the footage into an art film, I'll make a music video. And so that's the art film. So there's a music video out there called "No One Does It Like You" or something, by a band. I forget their name now. Department of Eagles. Is that? Yeah, Department of Eagles. But it was a good song, and the influence of the female dancers was at the plug-in gallery when I was still an art student. They had shown this film. It was a Chinese propaganda film called "Women of the Mountain Brigade" or something like that, and it was this ballet that was these women in communist outfits dancing, but I think they kill a landlord or something. This is just my memory of it. And that image also stayed with me, and so I was out for that video. I wanted to recreate it, and then I think I hardly draw, I think, male characters except for as maybe a victim now and then. I mean, or as like a hybrid. So it's pretty female dominant. So maybe that's why they happen to be the ones doing violence in those videos. That's my excuse, I guess.
That film was also made during the time of.
Oh yeah, that was also during the Iraq War. So I wanted this kind of imperialist army against this kind of rebellion, kind of terrorist costumes. So, and they basically wipe each other out, and then there are ghosts that dance together in the end. They get together there once they're dead and dance.
Thanks, Marcel.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
I think we're good. Do you want to share a few words about
the Lorca film?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I forget what I already said about it, but...
We said a lot,
okay.
but perhaps a little bit about how you responded to the screenplay.
Oh, yeah. So, so the screenplay that Lorca originally did, all of the pieces are in it, but it was a very harsh screenplay because it was the early surrealist. So there was a lot of rape in it. There was a lot of strangulation of animals, and so I kind of wanted this one to be more hopeful, and it's a little bit more of the bad guys lose in this one a little bit. I mean, they still win in some cases, but there's at least a revenge or a redemption in this. So in the other one, it was a little more just a little bit the evil characters win. So there's drunk boys in the original screenplay that are just causing havoc and killing everyone. And there are some references to Salvador Dali. It was also a revenge film. Salvador Dali and Buñuel had done this film where they made fun of Federico Garcia's homosexuality in it, and so he kills Salvador Dali in his film, and a couple make love on top of him, and so there's a little reference to it. There's not the love-making scene, but there's the death of
That's in the sequel.
Oh yeah, exactly. So this is the death of Tom Thomson in my film that they paint a Salvador Dali mustache on top of his the blanket they place on top of him, just as that reference. So there's little side references and stuff. There's a lot of inside jokes. And if you read the original screenplay, then you could figure out what those pieces are. So the original screenplay is called Trip to the Moon by Lorca. And so if you want to compare later. And also the Catalonian artist made a version of it that's on I don't know what it's called, but the other YouTube that's like more arty. Yeah, Vivian, is that what it's called? Or Vimeo, yeah. So you could look up that if you want. So you could see why I didn't make that film also. If you watch that one, it's pretty drastic.
Thank you,
And
Marcel.
thank
This
you.
has been
Thank
amazing.
you so much. It's always
Thank you.
been such an honor, so thank you. And thank you for coming out. I hope you enjoy the film. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything.
We will play the film, and then Marcel will be out in the atrium for the book signing. So we will see you there. Enjoy. Thank you.
Saludos, hijos del polvo de estrellas. Yo también fui como vosotros. Abracé el corazón de los deseos y bebí el agua a bocanadas hasta llenarme de agujeros. Y probé la tierra bajo vuestros 6 pies, regando las semillas con la sangre de mis venas. Mi vientre era tierra cuando me eligieron para ser la luna. Ahora alumbro el camino de sombras violentas y noches sin luz.